Autumn is here and winter is approaching, so it's time for a nice warming sipper of a whiskey, and that's what we've got right here with the latest release from Dingle Irish Whiskey, their single malt Cónocht on 4. Let's talk about it in this week's review. Welcome back to the channel. I'm Matt, I'm the Whiskey Nerd, and like I said, this week I'm looking at the latest release from Dingle, the Cónocht on 4 single malt. So let me get it into the glass and I'll tell you a little bit more about it. Now, this is the latest release from Dingle in their Wheel of the Year series. I've talked about all the other Wheel of the Year series on the channel so far. If you want to check those out, I'll put a link up there to the last one. There'll be links down below to the other ones, but essentially it's a series where Dingle are marking different Celtic holidays at different times of the year with special whiskey releases, whether they're single pot stills matured in like a wine cask, or in this case a single malt which was finished in a rum cask. These festivals happen at different times of year, and like I said, Dingle are releasing special whiskies to commemorate them. And if you look on the box that this whiskey comes in, you'll see that pretty much all the symbols on the Wheel of the Year are filled in, and in fact on this little Wheel of the Year symbol here, they're all turned gold. So you might think this is the last whiskey in the series, but it's not, because there is a secret final symbol, that one right there. It appears on the top of the bottle. It's the Wren Boy, or as they would say in Dingle, the Ran Boy, which is for Wren's Day in Dingle. It's a small little kind of festival they hold down there on the 26th of December, so Stephen's Day, and that's going to be the final whiskey in the series. But this here is the second last Cónocht on 4, which commemorates the Autumn Equinox, which is Cónocht, like the equal night, on 4 in autumn, so it's pretty much literally translates to the autumn equal night or equinox. Because this is the time of year where things are getting darker, the nights are getting very long in Ireland, and things are getting a bit colder, they've chosen to release a whiskey which has been a single malt, which is great, nice, warming, biscuity single malt, that then got finished in a rum cask, or in a series of rum casks, for a nice amount of time, to give it a nice kind of warming, almost tropical fruit feeling to kind of combat those colder winter nights. It spent its first 5 years of its life in like bourbon casks, a mix of bourbon casks from Heaven Hill or Maker's Mark. They don't have a single producer, they go to just a lot of first fill bourbon casks. Then it spent the second part of its life, 2.5 years, roughly, thereabouts, in a variety of rum casks. Again, there's no single producer for the rum casks, just a variety of kind of Caribbean oak rum, Caribbean rum casks. So you're going to get that kind of rummy, oaky note without getting like a specific producer's vibe coming through into the final whiskey. So it, like the other whiskies in the series, are about 7.5 years old, about 5 years in bourbon, about 2.5 years in that finishing cask. There is no age statement on it, so you can't be sure, but that's what they say. It's about 5 years in the first cask, and then about 2.5 years in those finishing or like second maturation casks to give it that kind of rich flavor that you want from a nice finishing cask. This here is a single malt whiskey, so it's 100% malted barley, and it comes in at 50.5% ABV, just says it right there, or 101 proof if you count by American. So it has a nice amount of alcohol in it. It's not going to be so strong that all you can taste is the alcohol, but it's also not like down the floor, down at 40, 42, 43%, where you're not going to get a full flavor. So it comes in a nice flavor, it's natural color, non-chill filtered, and I think that's all there is to say about the whiskey. So let's go in for the nose on this. Cheers. Okay, it is immediately quite citrusy. So there's obviously the Dingle, so Dingle single malt has this really kind of distinctive character to it. It's almost like herbal, it's almost minty, has that kind of like vibe to it. Instead, it has like obviously the biscuity notes you expect from a malt, but it's a little bit more herbal, a little bit more minty. But here I'm getting also a huge amount of citrus, like quite a large amount of lime coming in. Yeah, it's not in that kind of lemon citrus, it's that little bit more tangy, a little bit more zingy, that kind of lime citrus coming here into the nose. And again, like I said, on top of that big, rich, Dingle, herbal, malty character with some like cooked biscuity grains, and actually like a fruitier vibe than I'd normally get from Dingle whiskey. So in addition to that lime, that citrus, I'm also getting a bit of green apple, a bit of like that kind of, again, bright, fresh, floral green apple. Not like the sweet, kind of almost sugary, like red apple, more like that, again, that sharper, brighter kind of note they associate with a green apple. There's also like some caramel, some toffee, bit of butterscotch. That kind of like, imagine like a green apple that's been dipped in caramel or toffee or that kind of flavor. And you get that kind of nice wrapper there underneath. Those are the notes that I was getting on the nose. So I think that's enough on the nose. Let's go in for the palate on the Dingle Cónocht on 4. Cheers. It is honeyed and thick. It's still got like that herbal note, that kind of citrusy note that I was talking about from the nose, but it leans much more into that like caramel, the butterscotch, the brown sugar notes. Those come through much more into the palate. You get a big hit of that caramel, you get a big hit of that kind of like the sweet rummy flavor coming through, as well as a little bit of like oak spice, maybe a little bit of cinnamon, maybe a little bit of nutmeg, but definitely that oak spice coming through as like a contrast to that like that lime, the minty notes I was getting on the nose. There was also a little bit more tropical fruits, maybe heading to pineapple, maybe heading in that direction. So gonna go in for a second sip and see what else I can find. Cheers. Yeah, there's definitely that bit of pineapple in there, like slightly tart, like I was saying with the lime, it's kind of that bright, fresh lime, the green apple as well, the pineapple, it's in that slightly tangy, slightly tart, that kind of pineapple flavor. And that oak spice, like the more I kind of sat with it, the more I kind of chewed it and let it sit into my cheeks, the more it got like dry kind of oak, almost like coconut, you know, when you, like not a fresh coconut, like that dried, toasted coconut you get through, and a little bit of like dark cocoa powder, where it's like, it's darker flavors, it's deeper flavors, kind of like in that dark oak flavor, like that oak, the coconut, that all those kind of like almost drying flavors where you get, like you can feel your cheeks like drying out a little bit into there, but very nice. Like again, it's still balanced. Like it's like I'm saying all those dry notes, but there's still that kind of juicy, zingy kind of pineapple. There's still the rich, like honeyed almost caramel, brown sugar, butterscotch notes. Because it is quite a nice little balanced flavor on the palate. Yeah, just nicely balanced, nicely kind of rounded out on the palate. So I'm going to go in for the finish and talk about what lingers on the last. Cheers. Okay, so on the finish, like up front, you get that big hit of like the sugar, the lime, then you get like the oak, the drying into like the mid palate, and those are the flavors I think that last on longest into the finish. Like you get that caramel, the butterscotch, that toffee, that's there, and then that kind of fades off, but you still have that kind of like the tingle, like the feeling in your cheeks, like I was saying, from the cocoa powder, the coconut, the oak spice. Those are there lingering on. Like as I'm talking, as I'm breathing, I'm still getting every now and then a little bit like that whiff of that pineapple, like a little bit of that kind of flavor, maybe like some candied ginger, some dried ginger, like that little bit of spice as well as coming through. Again, those kind of like brighter notes still shining through, but like that dry notes, the drying, the coconut, like I was saying, those are probably the strongest notes into the finish. Before I give my final thoughts on this whiskey, if you're new here, scroll down, hit that thumbs up button, hit that subscribe button. I put out whiskey reviews like this every Wednesday, and I will be putting out a cocktail recipe featuring this whiskey this Friday. So if you want to see that, make sure you check back, make sure you hit that subscribe button, and let me know down in the comments below if you've tried any whiskies from Dingle, if you've tried any of the whiskies in the series and what you thought of them. But for me, I like it. I mean, it's a solid little whiskey. I would not say this is my favorite in the series. So far there have been 8 releases, and I would probably put this in the middle top of it, maybe like 3rd or 4th, like that kind of higher end of it, but it's definitely not, I think, my favorite of the whiskeys. Like it is a really, really nice, easy drinking whiskey. Like I was saying, like it has this richness, this roundness, this kind of like balanced approach to it, but I would be maybe hoping a little more for the rum cask to come through. Now, then again, if the rum cask comes through, it might not have been as easy drinking as it is, but right now it has that nice, easy drinking vibe. It reminds me a little bit of their Lunasa release, which was for the kind of the 1st of August festival called Lunasa, which was first fill bourbon for 5 years and then first fill bourbon for 2.5 years. So it got like extra bourbon and it made this really nice, soft, sweet, easy to drink whiskey. And that's kind of what this reminds me of, but just a little bit more like tropical fruits, a little bit more rummy. Like maybe if the rum came through a little bit more, it would have been higher, but like I said, maybe it wouldn't have been as high because it is very easy drinking. Like I'm definitely going to try this against the second half of the series, so if you haven't seen it already, I'll put a link up there, and I'll put a link down below. These have been going on for like 2 years, so I did a review of like the 4 first releases, compared against each other to find my favorite of it. I'll probably do a second one of the second year of the next 5 whiskies, put them against each other, and take the winner of those 2 videos and put them against each other to see which was my favorite of the series. I'm not sure this will be my favorite, but I think it'll feature up towards the top, like I said, because it is that nice, easy drinking whiskey. There are only, I heard, like 4,000 bottles of this on the market, so it's not a huge release. If you're collecting like me, you're collecting all the series to try them all against each other, I'd say definitely worth picking it up. It's a solid little whiskey, easy to enjoy. If you are hunting down all the series, like I said, definitely keep an eye out for it. But solid, easy drinking whiskey, not going to change your life, but very, very easy to enjoy. So I'm going to keep on enjoying it, and I will see you next time. Sláinte.